Before we kick this one off, I just wanted you to know that this is our final episode in season 1. We're going to be taking a little bit of time off. We're already creating content for season 2, and we will see you soon. We'll announce when things are about to start back up, but for the time being, make sure that you've caught up on all the season 1 content. There are 10 total episodes. And remember, BCBCUs are available too. We'll see you soon.
What did the doctor say after? Have you followed up with the doc to tell him that the medication had no effect on these specific aspects?
I mean, we were just happy to see the immediate impact on the pieces that we saw. We saw a fair amount of gains with the toileting and the sleep and the weight gain now.
That's hey, I'm with you. 80% drive to the field goal. I love it. What about that last 20 yards though? Like, what did the doctor have anything to say about it, or you haven't really thought to even follow up there to see
we haven't really
if there is if the medical component hasn't completely been exhausted?
Yeah, I assumed that the medical component was mostly fulfilled and we could try to loop Adele back in. So we haven't really followed up with the doctor again.
Okay.
The doctor said, "Are things getting better?" And we said yes, and we just kind of left it at that.
Okay. Well.
Hey, did you know you can actually earn BCBCUs if you're listening to this episode? If you'd like to learn more, including about our Behavior Analyst Certification Board, CEUs, that is Continuing Education Units for people that hold the credentials by the BCBA, you can go to explanatoryfiction.com and find this episode. Welcome to Explanatory Fiction. It's very important that you know how this podcast is structured. We've randomly generated this case. The variables are entirely fictional. That's right, because with the power of math and science, you can actually do these things now. In fact, the name Maya Edwards was randomly generated too. And the episode art, you guessed it, also made by artificial intelligence. But the best part is our team is real and the conversations that ensue are designed as a game that you get to play along with us. In each episode, we have one person that is evaluating the case from a clinical decision-making model, and the others are accomplices of mine who are trying to stump the analyst. Our challenge to you is, can you figure out a possible treatment model before us? Here we go. Maya Edwards is an 8-year-old girl who lives in Colorado Springs, Colorado. She lives with her fathers, Blake and Jeff, who have resided in Colorado Springs for about 11 years. They moved to Colorado Springs to specifically live in the Congregation of the Sun, which is a unique place as it is an intentional community centered around providing wraparound behavioral and mental health services for troubled youth. She was born in a lower income family situation that devolved into neglect, which ultimately led to the state obtaining custody for maltreatment. Her biological parents are not involved outside of stating that they want to be around for major holidays and events. This is where you come in. You're the resident BCBA who's in charge of intake and analysis at the Congregation of the Sun. You oversee approximately a dozen treatment teams, each with their own BCABA leading their respective team. We pick up with you rolling into the community, and you notice it has just about everything that you could imagine. A store, dining options, a school, and the next thing you know, you find yourself parking at Mr. and Mr. Edwards' house, where you knock on the door and are greeted by both Blake and Jeffrey.
Come on in.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me. Is it Jeff and Blake?
Yeah. It's good to see you again.
Oh, fantastic. Really lovely. That's right. Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm really bad with names, so it's really important for me to just confirm and say it out loud for myself, so I apologize. Nothing personal.
No worries. Same thing for me. I have to write everything down.
So tell me a little bit about what's going on right now with Maya.
Sure. So she was placed with us a few months ago in April, and, it's pretty standard. We're used to taking in students with or clients with disabilities, and we've handled that before. It was right at the end of the school year, so we actually decided not to enroll her in school for like the last couple weeks. So really, she just came in and we spent some time getting to know her. The social worker that dropped her off mentioned some aggression and a little bit of hyperactivity that was reported by her biological parents during that custody transfer. But now we're encountering some more emerging behaviors of concern.
Please continue.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. The social worker said that we were basically a perfect fit because she was a little bit more reactive to women that she encountered around. So with Blake and I here, we thought we would have a fairly easy time just getting her used to the space. And, we started building some relationships with her, but we did see some emerging behaviors of concern.
Okay.
She kind of would pop off.
Let's be specific.
Yeah. She would, when we weren't paying a lot of attention to her, she would just take off her clothes and happen to be walking around in the buff.
Oh, she likes to disrobe. Likes to be free.
Yeah, and
from the confines of modern convenience.
It happened every once in a while. We tried to get her back into her clothing, and sometimes she got a little bit upset over that. So we basically called for Adele to come and kind of do that intake analysis and give us a little bit of information about what might be going on behaviorally.
Oh, okay. So Adele came out to check on the disrobing and budding young nudist, and it seems that we are having some difficulty getting her clothes back on. If you try to redirect her back to her clothes, how does she react again?
She can get aggressive sometimes.
When you say aggressive, does that mean like hiss at you, or does that mean attempt to jump on you with her nails and bite you?
She's tried to scratch my face a couple times.
Okay.
Usually kind of like in an effort to get me to go away. It's not persistent if I back up.
Okay, so it's more just kind of like, okay, like a someone with their back against the wall and just kind of lashing out, but won't actually pursue you. All right. And then how long does it take before she finally does put on her clothes on? So like, what's the process? Like how does she end up with her clothes back on?
Sometimes it can take a little bit of a tantrum, like 40 to 45 minutes. Sometimes she accepts it without much aggression. Would you say that's the case, Blake?
Oh, yes, that is the case.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Actually, we did ask for Adele to come by in the overlap of that time you were going to be here.
I'm sure she'll be here in a few minutes. I just wanted to touch base with you all before she got here.
Sure. Yeah.
And just kind of get a generalized picture of what's going on. So let me just reiterate what we have here is to make sure that I have a understanding that I'm understanding you correctly. So Maya likes to run around in the nude and disrobe, and any attempts to redirect her or have her put her clothes back on result in attempts to scratching, but she does not necessarily pursue. In order for her to put her clothes back on, it's really just a waiting game, or just sometimes she'll just put them on without resisting to redirection. So it's very variable. One more question for you in terms of the ratio. So what's the ratio of she puts them on without resistance and doesn't put them on with resistance?
I'd say more often than not, it's with at least some level of resistance.
51% or like 90%?
Like 64%.
Very great numbers. That's very precise. I love it. Thank you for that spectrum of thinking.
Hey, Dimitri, how's it going?
What's up, Adele?
Nothing much. I'm excited to talk about Maya.
Love it. All right, great. So it sounds like Maya likes to disrobe.
Yeah.
And there's some aggression there, and it's kind of unpredictable. They're saying about 6 to 65% of the time. So 6.
Yeah. Did you guys kind of go over like in the beginning with the assessments and stuff we did?
Nope. I was just asking some preliminary questions till you got here. So please feel free to run me through it.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So I did just like a brief preference assessment, kind of found out what she likes. I mean, she likes rocking horses, dancing, things like that. And she will tolerate clothing, but she was a little bit on edge around me. I mean, I know did they talk to you about how she doesn't love women? So she was a little bit on edge around me. I asked Blake and Jeff about how she was sleeping. They said it was pretty bad. She was eating a lot with them, but I mean, she's really skinny. Have you met her yet, Dimitri?
No, I haven't had a chance to yet.
Yeah.
Just real quick, you said your assessment, what was the results of that again? The preference assessment? She likes...
rocking horses. Yeah, she likes dancing. She likes bouncing on the trampoline, swings.
And you think, and the clothing thing seems more like a tolerance problem to you?
Possibly, but hold on, because I kind of want to get into her like medical history, because that was like a pretty
great.
Big thing.
Yeah, please. Never mind. I'm sorry for interrupting. My mistake.
No, you're good. So when I first met her, she was really, really skinny, which makes sense because I don't know if they told you, but she was removed from her family for like a neglect case, right? So she had some toileting accidents while she was playing and things like that. But since Jeff and Blake didn't know a lot about her history, we didn't know a lot about her history, and we were still trying to get information from the state, I told them I wasn't very comfortable following up about the behavior until a doctor checked in with her. So that is the first thing that we did, is we took her to a doctor to get assessed because she was extremely malnourished. I'm not sure if we can talk to the doctor to share that information.
We have the information that they provided us from all of those, so we can definitely relay that.
Just before we get there, so you took her to the doctor for malnourishment. Are we here for that, or are you just giving me a general history?
if you don't mind me jumping in, when they did her height and weight and blood work, they gave her a checkup. She was super low percentile for weight. So in addition to like some allergies and stuff, they said that it was a big thyroid issue. So they said she had hyperthyroidism. And from what they mentioned for side effects for that, it made sense for some of the things that we were seeing as far as like the hyperactivity and the toileting things and the sleeping issues. So they got her on, let me see what this med is, levothyroxine. And it seems to be relatively successful for some of those symptoms.
Okay, that's specifically designed to deal with the dysregularity in our thyroid, right? So are we hypothesizing here, just so I can understand, are you guys thinking then that, or you were hoping that all the problem behavior would just go away because it was just a thyroid imbalance, and it seems like the medication hasn't fixed that, obviously?
No.
No, as in...
I definitely anticipated some problem behavior to still persist.
Oh, okay.
But some of the behavior, I mean, like the sleep issues or the toileting issues, we want to make sure is addressed by a doctor.
And they are? Are those under control now?
The medical issues tended to have an effect on some of the pieces, like the toileting. Her sleeping has gotten more regular. She's starting to pick up a little bit more weight, but we're still seeing a lot of that disrobing issue, and we're still seeing aggression when we try to have her put her clothes back on.
Okay, yes. But I'm just saying that, like, so the medications did address some of the concerns, which helped you rule out those particular symptoms as most likely related to the untreated medical issue. And you're saying what remains seems to be environmentally controlled.
Correct.
At least, Adele, that's what you're saying.
Yes, correct.
Then I'll tell you what, just since you folks have already dealt with the medical issues and we've had that kind of looked at, does she have any specific diagnoses or any other medical issues that I need to know about other than hypothyroidism?
I don't think anything that is impactful other than just like allergies.
Okay.
She has
doesn't have,
autism.
like...
We know she has autism as well coming in, but nothing.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, like,
outside of the norm for this setting.
Conduct disorders or mental health imbalances like bipolar or anything like that? Or
no.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so let's go through the list. So we got the disrobing. What else? And the aggression is relative to being redirected from the disrobing. But what else we got?
Well, it's kind of gotten worse more recently. Go ahead.
There's been some stuff, like even in the community once she is dressed, where there's some disrobing occurring, and it's been very difficult for us to work through in a public setting.
Okay, so it isn't just happening at home; it's happening everywhere.
It started to, yeah.
Okay, so you're walking down the grocery aisle and just like, bam.
I mean, never while we're grocery shopping, but
some public place.
Yes.
Convenience store, park, gas station.
The park and on the way to school.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a pretty close-knit community. Everyone kind of knows what populations we work with here, but when you have like an 8-year-old girl taking off her clothes and us trying to chase her around with them, it's really preventing us from accessing the community as much.
I understand. It is very problematic, yes. And also, you don't, 2 men, young girl, it's obviously also possibly it's just something that is uncomfortable and just not something you're ready to deal with, or not ready to, but you're in a position where you feel like you can process without having some kind of controls in place or some kind of thing that you're really addressing it with. I understand.
Oh, definitely. This last week has been really tough in regards to managing it.
Okay. Well, what have you been doing so far? So Adele, what are your thoughts? What kind of interventions have you been working with?
Honestly, for me, like it's been just trying to pair myself because she doesn't exactly tolerate with me being in the room. She's not a huge fan of women. So most of the time she requests that I leave, and I really try to honor that request. So I'll try to watch from the door frame if she allows it. But I mean, it's more just her getting used to me being in the area so that I can observe.
Can I just get a little more information on this whole doesn't like women situation? So is there some kind of history trauma or something that specifically that relates to, or is it an unknown?
Nothing that was relayed to us from the social worker. I don't know if there's anything that you found out, Adele, but nothing that was indicated to us other than kind of that gross maltreatment. So we're assuming that some things have been rough.
And what were the conditions that led to her foster placement?
The social worker really just said that she was removed from her parents due to gross negligence, and she came so underweight that we just assumed that she had been.
So you just assumed it was just malnutrition and just actual negligence.
General neglect, yeah.
Yeah, neglect. Yeah, not. Okay.
You see a kid that's not super into hanging out with adults or adult attention, you just maybe assume that they've been more fending for themselves.
Shunned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a reasonable inference. I mean,
so we're used to kind of some of the general, I don't even want to call it nonsense, but that those kinds of behaviors from kids we've fostered before, and even up into the point of getting her through the medical evaluation, nothing was too crazy. But and like,
what did the doctor say after? Have you followed up with the doc to tell him that the medication had no effect on these specific aspects?
I mean, we were just happy to see the immediate impact on the pieces that we saw. We saw a fair amount of gains with the toileting and the sleep and the weight gain now.
That's hey, I'm with you. 80% drive to the field goal. I love it. What about that last 20 yards though? Like, what did the doctor have anything to say about it, or you haven't really thought to even follow up there to see
we haven't really
if there is if the medical component hasn't completely been exhausted?
Yeah, I assumed that the medical component was mostly fulfilled and we could try to loop Adele back in. So we haven't really followed up with the doctor again.
Okay.
The doctor said, "Are things getting better?" And we said yes, and we just kind of left it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
I guess.
What else do I need to know that I'm not? I feel like we're missing something here.
Well,
what
I'll
other
say
information were you hoping that I would have?
Yeah, it's kind of been amping up in this past week or so, as we've been trying to, get her into school with the school year starting up. But you haven't had the chance to meet her. If you want, we can go and you can observe her.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it. Let's go.
Sweet.
So you walk around, enter the other room, and you see a little girl that's jumping on a trampoline in the playroom. And she's getting pretty into this Kids Bop version of the song Radioactive by Imagine Dragons. It's just blaring, right? While she's jumping on the trampoline. Maya notices you when you come into the room, and she bounces for a bit and then waves you off in an approximation of kind of like, go away, get out of here. She bounces for a few more minutes and then goes over to a rocking horse where she starts to rock as more voices of children shout the song Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. About 3 minutes after you stop observing, you see Blake react strongly as a dress is thrown out of the door and into the playroom. He goes in to check on Maya, and you follow behind. You see her continuing to rock in the chair when Blake comes in and props his foot on the rocking ski to prevent her from continuing to rock. And he gently says,
"Honey, we have to put on your dress. We have company."
And she waves him off. He represents the dress to her, and she smacks his hand. He then leans over and tells you, Dimitri,
Maybe we should just give her a second. Maybe I'll just try by myself.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Ooh, that was a doozy. You were in there for a minute, huh?
Oh, yeah. That was, par for the course, but...
Tell me about what it looked like.
You saw the beginning of it. It was just kind of that repeated for 40 minutes.
So you just kept handing her the dress. She kept tossing it. Yep. And then finally she acquiesced.
Yeah, she kept trying to get to her toys, and I'd try and block the toy, and she'd just go to another toy. It was a bit of a process. She was on the rocking horse for a minute, had to get her off that. Then she ran over the trampoline.
If you were to just walk out of the room while she's like that, what would happen?
She would ride her rocking horse and jump on the trampoline fully nude.
Okay, so she does stay naked by herself in that room even when no one's there.
Correct. She'll usually initiate her disrobing when no one's around, when she can kind of sneak away.
Oh, wow. So she's just uninhibited.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that's a little jealous of that. And there, just to not care about society's rules, just to let it all go. But unfortunately, that's a felony when you're an adult. So we probably have to do something about this.
And
okay,
it's kind of strange that it happened. It can happen throughout the day, but we've been encountering it mostly just in the mornings when we've been getting ready for school. So I'm surprised a little bit that it's good and bad luck that it happened when you were here, so you could see it. But it's interesting.
So you're saying it mostly happens in the daytime before school, or it happened? So what?
Go ahead.
Let's get back to our percentages.
Yeah,
half the time, 90% of the time.
What?
50% of the time, 30% of the time.
This year's just started off like a week ago, this school year, and it's been every morning since that happened. Before, it would happen intermittently, like it would happen occasionally, and we would push through, kind of like you saw Blake do just now. But kind of the reason we've called you in to back up Adele is because this past week has been really rough trying to get her in school clothes.
Yeah. Well, oh man. Okay. So it does happen every day before school. And does it happen after school as well?
Well, it's just been a week, but it's a big struggle to get the clothes on. She won't put her uniform on, and then we're not going to we can't have her go and and not match all the other kids, or we can't have her trying to take her clothes off when she's at school.
Yeah, we've had to start bringing like a large sheet with us to school, and if she disrobes on the way out, we cover, bring her to the car, and reset.
Yeah. Okay. It's okay. What else should I know? Did I miss anything? We covered diagnoses. We covered medical history. We covered age. We covered trauma history. We talked no interventions really. You've been using anything at home, like timers or anything like that? Rule setting, like boundary setting, anything like that? She's just completely unresponsive?
Well, Adele recommended some things in the meantime when we were in before she was in school. So we've been practicing signing for things like she's doing go away, she's doing more, she's doing like drink, bathroom, blue. We have a.
And how fluent is she in her signs?
Sorry, what was that?
How fluent is she?
Not very. She really doesn't have much. She had like more in eat and drink, but we've been trying to expand that to give her like a go away thing, which she kind of did naturally already, but we're trying.
Does she ever come to you to get your attention for things, or do you always have to offer them before she'll initiate?
She was pretty hungry in the beginning, like before the med thing. So she would come to us to get snacks a lot, and she would do eat and drink. But really, we're mostly keeping eyes on her because she would disrobe if we weren't keeping eyes on her.
Okay. Folks, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what's going on. It could be a lot of different things, and there'd be a lot of different ways for us to tackle this problem. I think what we would have to do here is what I would want to do is I think I'd have to sit down with you and Adele a little bit, and I think we need to go through what's called a functional assessment, functional analysis, so we can really test and like try to bring this behavior under some semblance of control, so we can get an idea of how it turns on, how it turns off. So we can actually effectively intervene, and I can actually have a working thesis of what's going on. Because at this point in time, I'm tempted to say she just likes to be naked, but then other things that you say make me think that she's trying to get out of school. So it's just easy to just take all her clothes off because it's how it's going to be. And then there are times where it sounds like maybe some of your reaction, even though you are doing your best to be as controlled as much as you can, it does kind of create this kind of social interaction that goes on while she is disrobed. So it could be that. So, I mean, there's so many different scenarios that are competing with each other, and it could be all of them. So I'd like to design, or at least structure an assessment that would kind of help me determine at least how to control the behavior on when it's occurring, when it's not occurring. So, and then initiate and design a treatment. Well, then design and then initiate a treatment. Okay.
I don't know how relevant it is. This is just kind of a thing I've noticed anecdotally. It's her school uniform is pretty formal. It's a polo with khaki shorts, ankle high socks. And she doesn't seem to like it. When she gets home, she'll hide it if she can. And I have noticed that another frequent time that this happens is like when we're getting ready for church, or when we're doing other activities where she's not able to kind of wear her sweats throughout the day.
So are you saying that if she's wearing her sweats, she doesn't disrobe?
95% of the time, it's when she's wearing more formal clothing.
95% of the time that she disrobes. That's a great answer to a question, but that was not my question. My question was, does she disrobe in her sweats or not?
There was one time where she was wearing her sweats and she disrobed. But other than that, it's usually been a more formal outfit that she's been disrobing.
And have we then tried just letting her just wear the sweats everywhere?
I mean, it's a private school. She's got to wear a uniform.
Yeah, she usually wears the dresses or the comfier clothing when we are able to go out and about. But it's only been a week of school. We've been trying to push through on the uniform thing just because we don't really want to rock the boat. Every kid wears the same thing. They all look so cute and dapper out there, and I don't know if the school's making those kinds of accommodations. They might, but
the school wouldn't make a reasonable accommodation of attire for a child with special needs so that they're not disrobing from the discomfort of the particular uniform that they prescribe.
I think the disrobing might be a big concern of theirs. I don't. And
right.
They're well attuned to it, and they know we're struggling in the mornings trying to get her dressed and ready to go there. The conversation hasn't really gone to, can she wear her Daisy Jones dress on the way to school?
Daisy Jones. I don't know who that is. Is that a character or?
Oh, and it's on Prime. Daisy Jones and the Six. You got to check it out. It's a great television show.
Oh, okay. I look forward to that. I'll put that on the watch list.
Very 70s, billowy.
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, it seems to me if the choice is between clothes that she'll take off and clothes she'll keep on, I understand your trepidation and seeming like you'd be rocking the boat, but it might be worth a conversation just to see, hey, could we try this just to see if this is the thing that's, necessarily creating this problem, so then we can start building her ability to wear the clothes and tolerate the clothes like Adele had mentioned, rather than just forcing her into the clothes and then being in a position where she's running around the house and potentially the neighborhood without anything on.
I mean, I brought it up in passing to her teacher one day, but her teacher just kind of commented that, I mean, the dress that she would prefer to wear is a lot easier to take off than her school uniform. So they were kind of dismissive.
I see. Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, they're dismissive to you, but I mean, you know the facts though, right?
I mean, the picture's becoming more clear now. Yeah.
Okay.
As we're talking about it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would love to offer you some groundbreaking, genius way to fix these kind of problems. Sometimes, we like to apply simplicity to these types of things and look for the straightest line to the solving the problem. And it seems to me that there's one set of clothes that she likes to take off and another set that she doesn't. And I don't see why we would want to go through and design a big behavioral modification program and all this other stuff to force her into, a bunch of clothes that maybe it's just a matter of us systematically teaching her how to deal with those clothes and how they feel, perhaps. I mean, tactile defensiveness and sensitivity to certain types of fabrics and textures is very much a feature of autism. So it can be very easily argued that it's a symptom of her diagnosis that is, and her disability. So, I mean, legally, frankly, the school, private or not, has to provide reasonable accommodations if they're going to accept children with special needs.
Do you still think you want to do the behavior assessment piece to see why it's happening?
I mean,
or do you think it's just the
I would still, I would still want to do that. Absolutely. But I mean, for us, in the meantime, as we're putting it together, as we're organizing everything, I mean, I'd want to eliminate this obvious seeming route.
I mean, that seems like
it just seems
reasonable.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I don't want to put her under a bunch of unnecessary experimental conditions and a bunch of like situations where it may be uncomfortable for her for no reason, if the reality of the situation is those clothes just don't feel good.
That works for me. I think we can look at looping you in with the teacher, and maybe we can all have that discussion together.
And then in the meantime, I'll get with Adele. We'll still design this functional analysis. And then in the meantime too, we'll talk about what it looks like to design a tolerance program. And we'll kind of try to overcome the concern with, her having that resistance to females in general, because, I'm sure she's got something going on there, but, we also have to be able to deal with 50%. Women are 50% of the population. So, I mean, we're going to have to in some way also help bring her into the mix there too. But in the meantime, let's tackle the more egregious thing, which is, the disrobing, and then we'll get to the tolerating females thing. Good work for you?
Sounds good.
All right, cool.
Wonderful.
We'll follow up in a few weeks, and let's give this a couple days and we'll see what we can come up with. Thank you for your time. God bless.
Thanks, Dimitri.
Sunrise bless, sir.
Under his eye.
You made it. This is the point in which you can pause, think about what you maybe would have done differently. Think if there was any themes throughout this as well. We're going to break character here, and this just turns into a typical podcast where it's just an open discussion. I hope you enjoy. Well done, Dimitri.
Thanks, man. I am so stoked.
You solved our itchy clothing puzzle.
I just must.
I'm like, what is going on with you guys were leaving out so many details. I'm like, what? And then I'm coming back to it. And I'm like, God, this doesn't make sense.
We tried a little bit of a different process on this one where we have like a tier of like things that we'll insert based on where it's going. So there's a little bit of a slight adjustment here on our process. Okay. And that's definitely part of what you reacted to there. It helped us more, but we're going to have to work through it.
It made it really confusing to navigate.
I liked it though, because I don't know, like maybe I'm just bad at asking questions during the intake process, but there have been so many times where it doesn't, like the key piece doesn't come out until way late, where I'm like, I wish you had shared that at the beginning.
Yeah, there's a covert and an overt approach to the way that we answer your questions, and we were going the covert route, and then you were like, let's do an FBA, and I was like, wait a minute, this is getting too close.
Abby, turn your mic up a little bit for me, please.
Okay, I was overcompensating.
I was gonna panic recommend that we do an observation of her getting dressed the next morning and be like, you see
that's what I said, yeah.
A thick tweed blue polo.
You guys have to know that if I encounter that level of just deception or withholding, I'm just gonna walk away. Like I'm not gonna.
But it's not supposed
I want
to
to
be.
give them as much of an opportunity.
It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, Dimitri, it's not supposed to be
it
intentional.
wasn't supposed to be.
It's just we're not attuned to the nuances of what that feeling is, which is supposed to be true to form of like, oh my God, they might hate the tags on their clothing and it's making them itch and they don't want to wear the clothing. But like,
why did I think of that?
Yeah.
That's why the whole time I'm like, is it just a clothing?
Yeah, like we're not like, we can't tell them it's the polos. We can't do it. They'll report us if it's polos. Like
what? And then Ryan's like, shouldn't ask that question now or whatever. I mean, look, you know, we've talked about this now on the podcast a few times, but like insensitive questions sometimes are a way to force information. Ask them indelicately. If it insults someone's sensibilities, they'll get defensive and respond sincerely.
One of my all-time favorite quotes on this podcast so far is, that's a great answer to a question, but not the answer to the question.
Max was having some
Those certainly are words.
Some beautiful mind number percentage new math happening over there.
I know. I was like, is this what the cult does? Like they just like
we're really good at percentages.
Inconsistent probabilities.
I don't want to misappropriate it. I don't want to
60% of the time.
I don't want to misappropriate it as a cult because it's based on some good things of people that are doing things. It just so happened that the Congregation of the Sun does sound a little special.
It's
called the Congregation of the Sun. How does that not sound like a cult, guys? Dave, you wrote this one?
Don't you worry about that.
To be fair, I was the one responsible for randomly generating the name of the place. So
I was waiting for a bell to start ringing for everyone to gather to drink their Kool-Aid. I was about to run away in fear.
We are all children of the sun.
So as we were randomly generating things, it turned into like, oh, this kind of fits a type of treatment setting in which you have like a very intensive placement, but it's not like a gated, you know, facility and like locked down. It is.
It's weirder.
It's well, it's designed. It's designed kind of in like a Boys Town-esque model, right? We have a lot of people that really care. In this case, centered around a religious component, and there's a lot of services available, right? But getting them all in lockstep and
Oh,
coordination.
I
is
see.
something.
So you guys are trying to emulate in the story kind of like that Catholic influence in Boys Town.
It was a little bit of that of like, and it wasn't intentional. It was like we were having a number of things that showed up in the dice roll that
Yeah.
included like religion
Mm-hmm.
that we were like, oh, we could go this direction with it. So if I were to design one off of Boys Town, for example, I would have gone a different route, but it just kind of fit. We justified that dice roll to kind of fit in this model as we wrote things.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an 8-year-old in a supported living community home, and it was just like, okay, how can we make this work? Especially with the behavior topographies that we got for someone that young, this seemed to be some best fit. And you throw some hyperthyroid issue in there, and that leads to some other fun behaviors.
Well, we had it. Is this the first disrobing we've done?
Yep.
It is.
Great public behavior community public service announcement. When we're talking about aberrant behavior where a person is taking their clothes off, we do not refer to it as stripping. We refer to it as disrobing.
Did we say it?
Stripping is a vocation. Disrobing is an action.
That line was put in the episode so that you would give that follow-up.
Because this has been a discussion that's had to happen before. Is just, use the technical word. If you say stripping.
Stripping is a vocation.
Yeah. And we teach vocational skills, but not those vocational skills.
Exactly. Wrong kind of vocational skills. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what the hard part about this case wasn't the thing; it was the context. Honestly, which, in terms of lessons to learn from, I think that is a good lesson because, especially if you're a consultant or you're a home therapist, man, you walk into some wily situations or like people's cultures, their beliefs. I mean, look, there's 6-7 billion people on the planet. Like, good majority of them are really weird. Like they're totally gonna you're gonna be confronted with stuff that's just so unusual and bizarre to you. Like it's hard to, it's gonna really muddy the waters in terms of like how you would navigate that conventionally speaking. Religious belief aside, just the whole just array of weirdness. So that was the hard thing for me in this, and also I don't want to say caginess because you were forthcoming. But you were vague, for sure.
That's probably just our improv skills in trying to be uninformed when we know about the whole thing. And maybe our lack of acting skills appears as caginess, where you're reading into that as like a genuine thing and not like, these guys are trying to improv off of a spreadsheet and a script.
Yeah. I think that's accurate.
All right, so I misinterpreted the hesitation.
Yeah, that's probably just us sussing out where we can look. But did you look up hyperthyroidism in this? Did you look up any of the medical pieces?
I know what hyperthyroidism is.
Did you?
I looked up the medication.
Did you dig into some of the symptoms of that as part of the initial observation of this kid and what we were seeing and how some of it was fixed and how it may have had an influence?
No, but I do know that hypothyroidism has behavioral and like it has problems. Like I've have members of my family who suffer from it.
Because I mean, I don't know if I guess we can.
I myself have been on a thyroid supplement in the past.
A part of this,
I didn't have incontinence issues, just to be clear for the listeners out there. But
the more you know,
it definitely has behavioral problems.
A piece of this that I think we can dig into the topic is just the unintentional responses of adults can lead to a learning history in response to behaviors that happen and might not necessarily have like a functional basis. Like she was engaging in some things due to part of her medical response. She was super hyper. There's like a feeling of warmness.
Organismic state, I think is the phrase you're looking
and the
for.
way that
the
way that we're going to respond to that, even when those underlying issues were resolved via medication, that learning history had still evolved or it's still been part of it.
Oh, so you're positing here. Let me just make sure I'm understanding kind of what you're saying. Are you positing that she wasn't into disrobing before, but she got into disrobing as a consequence of engaging in it during the whole time when she was untreated for all the other stuff? And as a result, she created a history where that was like operantly conditioned through there.
Or like as a piece of neglect, she may have not necessarily had to have clothes on. And then the social piece of us having to push for that, even when the underlying medical basis was resolved, had led to that problematic kind of engagement interaction with her foster parents.
I'd have to think a little bit about, like, I guess, like leftovers, basically. I mean, technically it's possible. I mean, theoretically it's not an insane thing to say. I think I would pressure, if we were doing like a round on this and you gave me that answer, I'd probably pressure you a little bit to be like, I want to know your evidence, like, cause it was there was some conjecture in that, like, it could be about the neglect. Anytime you're using the word could.
Yeah, there's an ambiguous history that we have no idea of what happened right before.
Right, but I mean, my point is that, like, you had her for a whole year, or that she wasn't disturbing. I couldn't remember that detail. Like,
4 months.
You mentioned something about last. Okay, but you said last year she wasn't doing it, and this year she is. Oh, you had her for 4 months. So you had her for like the last couple months of school, or last.
Yeah,
month
I think
of
that's
school.
What he was referring to as school years.
Summertime.
So, yeah.
Okay, so you had her for the last month of school, summertime, going back to school.
Yeah,
and that's when it started.
She didn't even go to school. Yeah. So this was really the first presentation of that.
So you made it through the last month of the year, and there was none of this. You made it through the whole summer, and there was none of this. And it really started ramping up, like, as closer and closer school got.
Yep.
And then, or it happened when school started.
Yep, because of the uniform as being kind of the biggest piece of that.
I should have asked that, honestly. I wasn't. I'm kind of tired, so you got me on that one. That's a question I should have asked when it started happening, and I just assume it was present the whole time.
We may have alluded to it happening intermittently before the big struggle piece, but I think
we kind of did, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if we had opted to do an observation the following morning, you would have seen a quicker response, or a higher magnitude response of the aggression paired with the struggle over the clothing, and that could have allowed for some differentiation.
Yeah, disrobing that's a fun one.
Speaking of the sheet comment that you made, Max, about like we'll carry a sheet.
Oh, that was personal experience.
I was gonna say, have you all ran into that? Because I have in the past.
We've had to use that those parachutes that they have for like kids circle times.
Yeah.
We've had to use that. But I didn't think it was practical to have that in my trunk, so I said sheet instead.
Yeah, I was once on a like consultant trip out of state, and with behavior analysts, I had been in the field for a couple of years, no like official certification or whatnot, kind of function as an RBT. And there was a rule at the facility that if stripping was happening, it was a state facility. If disrobing. If disrobing was happening, that you had to go and you had to get 3 sets of sheets that were on like PVC pipe, and you'd set them up to where nobody could see like in, but you'd have like basically like a triangle, and a little bit of it was open so they could get out if they wanted to. And not that they were heavy or anything, but also that so someone could have like line of sight on what was happening. And that was it. They didn't have anything else. They're just like, you literally hear just grab the sheets, like yelled. And then people would run out with these like one of them was big enough for one person. So 3 people would run out and like put them around somebody. And I was like, this is a spectacle. There was a number of people that just like disrobed just to see so many staff just like completely
sprint out to them.
Yeah, it was wild, man. We're like, have you guys tried doing this a different way? Like, well, that's protocol. And it was similar to what you were talking about, Dimitri. The first conversation was like, can we go talk to some administrators here and see if this is like required to act this way, or can we bend this rule a little?
No, it's funny. Well, we're doing that, we're going through that systematic review of JABA, and the only couple articles that I've actually come across on disrobing is it's all response blocking. The research is response blocking.
Really?
Yeah. I'm sorry, RIRD, response interruption with response redirection. But
we don't disrobe here, we disrobe in the bathroom. Right?
And that's the thing. And then you teach environmental or contextual discrimination. So where it's appropriate to take your clothes off and where it's not. So environmental discrimination and response blocking in the moment. Yeah, it's tough. The disrobing that's the only way I've ever been able to quash it is full-blown extinction. There's no in between for something like that. Social acceptability standards are a problem too, especially if they're doing it out in the community. And you just gotta, some things you gotta stop immediately. You can't slow roll things that are future felonies. That's just how I see it.
That could be the first piece of merch.
Especially things that involve nudity, because like the criminal justice system, they don't play with nudity and stuff, and they'll slap a sex offender label on anybody for not minor, but for like, all kinds of things. I mean, those stories of like someone drunkenly, standing and taking a pee outside, and it just so happens it's in, even if it's nighttime, by a park area or something, and then getting arrested for that and then getting an SL label, like those things do happen. And if there's a history of it with someone with disabilities, they'll put it on there so that people know that they're just, even if it's a mild offense of it, they will.
I'm seeing it not full on disrobing, but things close to it, approximations of it more commonly in younger kids, just because of the reactivity that it gets as an immediate response from teacher or adult
usually
redirections.
Usually the function is like chaos creation. Wow. Like, it's like, wild bohemian. Oh man, it's been long enough for this kid. I got my wiener out. And he would literally run around the room, just
helicoptering it.
Just like, oh my gosh, man, put it away, bro. Come on, clean it up.
Dimitri, I was curious if you would take an empathetic parent perspective on children disappearing and reappearing nude and running around.
I almost made a joke of my own kid. Oh yeah, he's quite the nudist as well. Yes, he is, but he puts his clothes back on. It's not that big of a fight. That's funny. Yeah, that's my life. That's for sure my life. Like, bro, put your wiener back in your pants.
If did you endorse Adele's pretty quick referral to medical based on what she encountered?
Yeah, that was good. For sure. She wasn't sure what was going on. Let's get the medical stuff worked out, especially given the neglect and the low weight and all that other stuff. I mean, weight gain, especially for someone who's been malnourished, that actually has to be monitored and systematically done, because you can actually harm yourself during the weight gaining process. And, so it's your body does a lot of weird stuff when it's from an extremely deprived state coming back into some kind of homeostasis. So I think that was a smart move. I didn't love the fact that she would just leave. If she, because of the whole, like, I don't like females thing. I don't really latch on unless there's like been an overt expression of sexual trauma. I just don't buy into the idea that we make discriminations based on gender for who the provider is. And like, if that's a thing, like, I just don't buy the validity of that actually being a thing.
Yeah, I'm on board for that. That was a little bit of a red herring thing as well. That was thrown in there for some flavor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I didn't address it at the end because I just felt like I a little bit kind of touched on it, but I didn't really go down that line of thinking for the context of the scenario, because it didn't make sense there. That would have been a separate conversation her and I would have had privately as like a supervision session or something.
Is your intervention design just systematic desensitization, like toleration of like different types of clothing and increasing clothing?
It's response blocking with systematic desensitization for something like this. Absolutely. And honestly, I wasn't kidding about the whole, like, are we seriously going to fight this battle?
Sure.
Like I meant to be dismissive of it because it wasn't for a religious reason. It was for a procedural reason. Mm-hmm. And those are different things. It's one thing if it's religious attire and you have, like, if you're working with a family, like a Muslim family, and the young girl won't tolerate the hijab, but it's super important to them. So you want to work on, her capacity to be able to tolerate the garment around her face and that kind of a thing. That's one thing that has an actual functional religious observance to it. But if we're talking about, hey, we just wanted to fit in and the teacher's an a-hole and like, we don't want to rock the boat and get, people give us dirty looks at PTA meetings. Like, that's a totally invalid reason to not have that conversation. No.
Meaningful social significance versus arbitrary
it's
social.
Socially insignificant.
Yeah. In this instance, it's completely arbitrary, but like the hijab mention or that example is significantly more significant. It's
right. Yeah. So you got to choose your, there was no religion. That was not part of the religion. That was part of their, community. Not even that. It was the private school rules. It was nonsense.
Do you know the Congregation of the Sun, sir, that well? Have you been there?
Don't, I'm not familiar. No, I'd say.
Do you have a
Never
minute to
had
talk
the
about the
pleasure.
Congregation of the Sun?
Dude, I tell you what, I live really close to Jehovah's Witnesses, man, and I find on a weekly basis handwritten full letters with my name on them. It is weird. Like, it really freaks me out. Man, it's handwritten, and they're long too, and telling me about all the things they're doing for me. It's really uncomfortable. So no, I'm not familiar with the Congregation of the Sun, but I have to say that I'm a pass.
If any members want to send Dimitri letters informing him about the Congregation of the Sun, his address is.
I've got a pamphlet.
Oh man, there's what's crazy? Somewhere on the internet, there's some people who call themselves the Congregation of the Sun. It's not it's like somehow we're gonna get strongly worded letters.
It's actually a band.
If you're interested in earning BACB CEUs for this episode, you can actually head over to our website and you'll use the code word medical rule out. Again, that code word is medical rule out in order to complete your CEU process. Just head over to explanatoryfiction.com. It's a quick process. It automatically shows up in your email inbox after you've done your verification process. So one more time, that code word is medical rule out. The views expressed during the Explanatory Fiction podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. Assumptions made in the analysis are not reflective of any position of any other entity other than the authors, and since we are critically thinking human beings, these views are always subject to revision, change, and rethinking at any time. Please do not hold us to them in perpetuity. This podcast is to educate and inform, provide discussion, and does not constitute professional advice. Remember again that the variables in this case were randomly generated, as well as the name and the episode imagery. Thank you, math. Thank you, science. And thank you, artificial intelligence. Rhino LLC is an approved continuing education provider. That is ACE number #OP-19-3037. And the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, also known as the BACB, the registered trademark, does not sponsor or approve or endorse Rhino LLC, the materials, information, or sessions identified herein. Thank you for listening.